finished. I would just draw a little light construction line in there, just like how you drew these lines in here to find how big his face was. And then what I do is actually come in here and start constructing the upper part of the eye first. Let me zoom in so I can see a little bit more. There we go. So basically what's happening is that it comes up like this, and it gets the widest from this center line right about where you stop seeing the brown in his eye. All right? And then it comes down. Little bit of a sharper curve than from the outside there. All right? And then we have the underside. Okay. And this side basically does the same thing as the top, just lesser. So it's not as big of a curve in there. Okay, so it's a little bit more like that. So I have to do erasing twofold, just because this program doesn't allow me to erase actual background layers. All right, so that would be the basic eyeball shape, right? And then we have to put in his iris and his pupil, right? So come in here.
Mom, I didn't get what she did different from mine.
It looks like he's begging for something.
Just putting the iris. What do you mean different from mine?
Well, she changed my eye,
Yeah.
but I don't see anything different.
All right, so notice how on the side here we get more of the white of his eye, and then barely anything on the inside part. All right, and then we can look at how big his pupil is, and dog pupils are bigger than human pupils, right? You can come in here. And it's about that large. All right, so the last part in here that we need to do is we're actually seeing a little bit of the volume of his eyelid, so the thickness of his eyelid in here. Sorry, I keep going back and forth. So this part in here, right, do you see how dark that is in comparison to, like, say, the bottom lid? So what we want to do is we want to come in here and actually darken this up a little bit.
With paint or with pencil?
With the pencil. I think it makes life a lot easier if we have, you know, something small like this already shaded in, so we know where it is. Okay. So his eye is going to look something like that. All right. So do you have any questions about the eye before we go to his snout?
No.
Okie doke. So why don't we look at the shape of this first? So dog noses are, I think they're harder than human noses in some ways, because they have all these, you know, very interesting sort of curly cues inside, right? So what we're seeing in here is his nostril, obviously. And then this would be the center line of his nose, coming up and around, right? So if we were to identify this center line in here, let me just flatten that a little bit. There we go. If we identify that, then we can kind of draw the outside part of his nose from that center line, and it'll help us make it look like it's more in space. Okay? So that would be his first nostril. And what I would do is actually section this part off in here. So let me get a color. You don't have to color this in, Nadia, but I would have like a little shadow map in here, just so we know that this plane is different than this plane. Okay, because that's the top of his nose, and this is like the side in here. All right, and then we have the other side. It kind of sticks out, right? And then we have inside here, I can't really tell from the photo because it's a little bit dark, but I think that this is the other side of his nostril in here. Just like that. And we can just kind of leave it like this, because we'll just go from the photograph and the information it has. Sometimes if we come in here and actually do too much inventing, it'll start to not look like what we're trying to draw. All right, so it kind of looks like if I were to take like a circle and then find the center line of the circle. And then as soon as it goes off of that, it goes straight down. And then I can make like a little triangle in here. And that could be our basic shape for the nose. And then we could find in here, looks like a little comma or something coming around. And then it goes in again, right? Because we're still trying to find that shadow shape. And then on the other side, we can kind of just do a little curlicue. All right, so circle, center line, then we find the triangle there, and then we can put in his nostrils. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so let me get rid of this stuff in here. There we go. And on yours, my dear, on your nose, it looks pretty good in here, but I think that we're just missing, it looks like it's from a side view, right? Where we're not quite seeing this part, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're correcting it. All right, so let's talk also about his, I guess it's his snout. I guess that's what we call it. I'm not a dog anatomy person, so I don't know the real names for things, but I think you did a really good job finding that, you know, his chin sticks out a little bit in there, right, and this curves in like that. I think what we can do down here, right, is just really think of, let me blow it up again, really think of that center line again. So that would be where, I guess this is his lip, we can call it his lip, where his lips part, right? So if I were to continue that center line in between his nostrils, it would look something like that, okay? So this whole area in here is going to be part of this plane, all right? And then it would kind of go back into space like so. It looks like, I think that's where his like edge of his lip is in there, looks like, right? So we can do that on ours as well. So if we were to draw a center line, be like in there, comes down. And I'd have this dip down a little bit more. And it comes up and around.
Do you know that Jared got his lip?
And then down like
later,
that.
please. Show recording us.
I'll make a little fish hook for that area. All right, so that would be the upper lip, I guess we could call it. And then for the lower lip, let me zoom in onto the photo so you can see the tracing first. If I were to take a tiny little line in here, that's actually where the bottom of his jaw meets the top in here, right? If the top here was invisible, see how it overlaps slightly, right? And then this comes down, and this whole area in here is going to be pretty much the two planes that make that up. So this would be like the front part, and this is starting to go to the side. And then this comes all the way down, and it's going to meet the other side in here. I'm kind of making this up because I'm not quite sure from the photo if that's where his bottom lip is, but I think it is. So it'd be something like that. All right, so on your drawing here, what we'd do is we'd want to take a little angle in here, which it looks like you did. And then instead of it swooping down like that, I think it goes more diagonal, like that. And if you're not sure, think of this edge of the cylinder, this part in here, right? Think of that edge being the bottom portion. There. And we can just join it together. Looks something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so one last little bit, and then I'll let you go. So we do have, hold on, let me find another color. Let's do that. So the last part in here we want to look at is kind of where I guess his eye would be on the other side, right? And we want to look at this shape. Right in here. Okay. So if you think about it, this is a continuation of that center line. And since his face is slightly turned, do you see how we have this little bit in here? Right? That's actually the other side of his nose there. All right, so I would suggest coming back in here. And while, you know, it was good to have our initial simple shape, right? Still want to make it a little bit more accurate. So what we'll do is continue this center line up here. And notice how it dips down. Looks like you...
What did I do?
You switched it off.
I didn't.
সব করো, ভূতের মতন হবে।